Mr Hawke, who paid the fines, do you know?
I've got no idea. Certainly the ACTU didn't, as I understand that there's some suggestion from those beleaguered people in Canberra that this is what they're saying.
Well, what's your reaction to it?
Twofold, really. One, surprise, although, as has been pointed out to me, there's some sort of a history of this sort of thing over recent years. The second thing, of course, is that I think it does indicate that the sort of thing that the ACTU has been saying in recent weeks is obviously valid and recommends itself to people in the community, and that is that we're not going to pay the fines, let them be put aside, and let's sit down and talk about how we can work out a viable system of industrial relations. The present system with these penal provisions and fines hasn't worked and is not working. We've said let's sit down and talk about it. Now, I would say that the opportunity should exist now for that to happen, unless the most reactionary elements in the government still want to make an issue of this thing.
Well, there's some talk from Canberra this afternoon that the government will consider again the collection of the $37,900 from the old fines.
Well, as I say, they do have some very reactionary elements amongst them. If that's their decision, then the community will clearly see that the last thing that's in their mind is a desire to get a decent industrial relations system. It'll be perfectly clear that all they're concerned about is trying to make a political confrontation situation.
Mr. Charles Watson is an Associate Director of the International Commission for the Prevention of Alcoholism. Mr. Watson, what is your work?
We try to provide educational media for schools and youth clubs, films, magazines, brochures which point out the dangers, the hazards to health and to well-being in using drugs, particularly alcohol, tobacco and narcotic drugs.
Where have you been working?
Most of my life I have been working in Europe, out of London, Scandinavia, but during the last 2 years I have been operating from our headquarters office in Washington, D.C.
Why are you in Newcastle?
I'm here to introduce one of our newer films on the problem of alcoholism. This is a film which has been recently produced by Dr. Melvin Knisley on the work of Dr. Cyril Corville, which shows the physical changes that take place in the bloodstream after alcohol has been ingested. Dr. Knisley uses a very powerful microscope showing how that the small capillaries in the whites of the eye indicate changes caused by the sticking together of the red blood cells, forming a sludging of the blood which deny oxygen to the brain.
Oxygen's important to the brain, isn't it?
Very important. In fact, if the brain cells are denied oxygen for 3 to 5 minutes, they will die and they are never replaced. The damage is irreparable.
Now we talk of a war in Indochina, but whilst we may talk about a war in Indochina, remember that it's the war that started in Vietnam that's the crux of this whole question. Cause an end to the strife that's at present existing in Indochina.
This total destruction of the parkway system from Strait Avenue to Derby Street is disappointing and a disgrace. Some of our local government trustees of our parks are ever ready to bend over backwards to agree to any roadway engineer's proposal to use parklands for roads.
Our guest this evening is Mr. David Newington. He's a missionary for the Assembly of God in Africa. Mr. Newington, how long have you been a missionary in Africa?
Nearly 30 years.
You would have noticed quite a few changes over the time.
Fantastic changes. It's a continent of millions of people and hundreds of nations, and of course the whole chemistry of change.
And what do you actually do there?
Well, we have a large missionary printing press, and we devote our time to printing the Christian gospel in millions of pieces and in several hundreds of languages altogether.
Do you have problems with the literacy of the natives?
Yes, I suppose it's a problem. It's one of the things we take into account. We design our literature so that it is easily understood by a person who has a vocabulary maybe of 300 or 400 words.
Would you rely a lot on pictures?
Yes, we do, tremendously so, because of course we have to draw a picture in the minds of the African people of the thing we are saying to them in print.
How many of the many languages would you speak?
5 or 6, my wife and I between us. But we have a panel of translators who handle 25 languages on the spot.
Where are you based in Africa?
On the borders of Swaziland and Mozambique and the Republic of South Africa.
We read quite a bit about apartheid here, and I think most Western nations are critical of it. What do the people living in South Africa, and in particular the black people, think of it?
Well, I'm a missionary, not a politician, and everyone, and I come in contact with many thousands of people of all colours. They seem very happy and prosperous and content. It is a placid and prosperous country.
You don't think the black people mind perhaps not being able to get the best jobs always and things like that?
Well, of course, within their own province they get very good jobs. Very good jobs indeed. We have black operators of our machines, highly qualified men.
How would the black people of South Africa compare with other nations in Africa as far as their development?
Well, comparisons are difficult to make, but they do very well. Nice educational system, hospital system. Jobs are good and money is good, comparatively so.
In your many years in Africa, have you had any close shaves over there with tribal wars and things?
Well, I've tumbled into African rivers, and yes, I have lived in the middle of very primitive society, where people are cannibals. On one occasion I remember a man walking past our front door, eating someone else's arm. And, of course, in the old days the structure of tribal society was very intense, rigid. Things like theft. For instance, there was a young boy who stole a little cardboard carton from behind our house on one occasion many years ago, 20 years ago or more. And the local chief came to me and told me about it and threatened reprisals. And when I inquired just what they used to do in the old days, pointing to a local anthill, he said, well, we would just dig a little hole, put his arm in and come back the following morning to discover a skeletal arm, a one-armed boy. Of course, they don't do things like that today.
Did you have much to do with Biafra or during the Nigerian War?
No, I wasn't in that particular part of Africa, but I have been involved in little tribal squabbles from time to time.
Do you have many problems teaching the natives Christianity? Do you find that they perhaps can't grasp all the concepts of it?
Not since we depend upon a supernatural projection of the message. We are not nominal Christians. We try to be real Christians and to project a simple message of Jesus Christ. And we have tremendous response. Multiplied thousands of people send in to our missionary press confessing Christ.
How many missionaries would you have over there?
We have 140 young men and women who came out from England. I suggested that they should come out and take jobs and be modern young people, so they have done this. They give 1/10 of their total income to the production of Christian literature, and also spend their time talking to the black people of the neighbourhood about the Lord Jesus.
How long are you in Australia for?
Just for barely a month.
Our guest this evening has been Mr. David Newington, a missionary in Africa.